Behind the badges and engineering breakthroughs are stories of pride, ambition, and relentless competition that shaped the automotive world as we know it today. But in the realm of cinema, that pride is often built on a foundation of smoke, mirrors, and fiberglass. We look at the machines of the Fast and Furious franchise as the pinnacle of street racing culture, 10-second cars capable of defying physics, yet the mechanical truth is often far less glamorous. In this video, we are uncovering the movie magic behind 7 iconic cars that defined a generation, revealing that some of these legends were actually fiberglass shells, powered by broken engines, or held together by little more than hope and edits. The Fast and Furious franchise did not just entertain, it educated an entire generation on the terminology of tuning. It taught the world about nitrous oxide, forced induction, and the importance of a properly tuned engine management system. However, the irony of this cinematic legacy is that the vehicles depicted as the ultimate street weapons were often incapable of outrunning a standard family sedan. To create the visceral thrill of illegal street racing safely and within budget, the production teams had to rely on illusions. They built cars that looked the part but possessed none of the mechanical soul. From engines that never ran to chassis that belonged to completely different manufacturers, we are peeling back the bodywork to expose the mechanical secrets of the franchise's most famous rides. The 10-second myth, Brian's 1995 Eclipse. We begin with the car that started it all, Brian O'Connor's 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse. In the film's narrative, this was a high-stakes machine, a car that, with enough nitrous, could almost beat Dominic Toretto's RX-7. The script famously refers to it as a 10-second car, implying it could run a quarter-mile drag race in under 10 seconds, a feat that requires immense power and traction. However, the reality of the hero car used for the close-ups was starkly different. While the script demanded a turbocharged monster, the actual car used for the majority of filming was equipped with the naturally aspirated 420A engine. This was not the legendary 4G63 turbo engine found in the GSX or GST models that enthusiasts covet. It was a base model engine producing roughly 140 horsepower. It was not just a victory of editing. It was a statement on how sound design can alter perception. The aggressive turbo spool and blow-off valve noises were dubbed in post-production. On set, the car was sluggish, struggling to pull the weight of its heavy body kit and sound system. The rivalry on screen was intense, but mechanically, this legend was barely faster than a commuter car. This contrast reinforces the idea that, in Hollywood, presence matters more than performance. The theatrical blower, Dom's 1970 Charger RT. If the Eclipse was the underdog, Dominic Toretto's 1970 Dodge Charger RT was the monster in the closet. It represented pure American muscle, characterized by the massive BDS blower protruding through the hood. The lore states this engine produced 900 horsepower, twisting the chassis with enough torque to lift the front wheels off the ground. Yet, this icon of intimidation relied heavily on theatrical deception. On several of the stunt cars, that massive supercharger was completely non-functional. It was a prop, bolted to the hood to achieve the aesthetic of power without the mechanical complexity. In fact, on some of the driving mules, the butterfly valves on the intake scoop were not connected to the throttle linkage at all. They were glued open or operated manually for specific shots. Furthermore, the legendary wheel stand at the end of the first film was physically impossible for the car to achieve on its own. To create the shot, the stunt team utilized a hydraulic ram system installed underneath the passenger side. When activated, a piston would fire downward into the asphalt, vaulting the front of the heavy steel car into the air. It was a violent, mechanical trick designed to simulate torque that simply did not exist. The result was a car that felt like a living beast, yet was essentially a puppet on strings. The digital deception, the R34 Skyline GTR. By the time the R34 Nissan Skyline GTR appeared on screen, It had already achieved mythical status among enthusiasts. To many viewers, this was the ultimate expression of Japanese engineering. All-wheel drive, twin turbos, and a reputation for demolishing supercars on the street and the track. On film, it was presented as a precision instrument, perfectly tuned and brutally fast right out of the gate. Behind the scenes, however, the production cars were far more humble than the legend suggests. Import laws and budget realities meant that the studio could not simply order a fleet of genuine GTRs and start wrecking them. Several of the GTRs you see on screen were in fact lower spec Skyline models, rear-wheel drive GTTs or non-turbo variants, dressed up with body kits, badges, and wheels to complete the illusion. In some cases, even the all-wheel drive system that defines the real GTR was absent. To sell the fantasy, the camera and the sound department did much of the heavy lifting. Aggressive turbo noises, wastegate chatter, and rapid-fire gear changes were layered in during post-production, regardless of what the on-set car was actually capable of. Shots were carefully framed to hide telltale details like brake calipers, driveline layout, or interior differences. What appeared to be a single, brutally fast supercar was often a patchwork of multiple vehicles and sound effects stitched together. The result was a car that, in the minds of the audience, could do anything. Drift perfectly, launch like a dragster, and dance through traffic with supernatural grip. In reality, many of those screen-used Skylines were far closer to everyday commuter coupes than to the hand-built heroes that enthusiasts revere. Once again, the real engineering marvel was not always under the hood. It was in how convincingly the movie turned compromise into legend. The floating shell, the Yenko Camaro. In the climax of the same film, the script required a 1969 Yenko Camaro to launch from the land and crash onto a moving yacht. This stunt presented a unique problem. A heavy steel muscle car sinks like a stone. If the stunt went wrong, or if the car needed to be recovered from the water for multiple takes, a 3,000-pound anchor was a liability. The solution was to remove the car's soul entirely. The vehicle used for the jump was a hollow shell. The engine, transmission, and interior were stripped out to reduce weight. To ensure the car would not disappear beneath the waves immediately after impact, the production team filled the empty cavities of the bodywork with expanding industrial foam. It was essentially a Camaro-shaped buoy. The car was launched via a steam-powered catapult system, creating the trajectory required to hit the boat. What appeared on screen as a heavy, metal-twisting impact was actually a lightweight, foam-filled husk colliding with the set. This rivalry between physics and filmmaking required the car to become a prop in the truest sense. The beetle beneath, the Corvette Grand Sport. By the time Fast 5 arrived, the franchise had shifted from street racing to heist films, and the cars became even more rare. The 1963 Corvette Grand Sport is one of the most valuable American cars in history, with real examples worth millions of dollars. Destroying a real one for the famous train heist and cliff jump scene was fiscally and historically impossible. Once again, the solution lay in a complete identity swap. The cars built for the off-road sequences were not Corvettes. They were custom off-road buggies based on a Volkswagen Beetle architecture. They utilized air-cooled VW engines mounted in the rear, hidden beneath the custom fiberglass bodywork of the Corvette. If you look closely at the handling of the car in the dirt, the suspension geometry behaves unlike a front-engine muscle car. It squats and slides like a dune buggy. The production team built roughly 10 of these replicas to be destroyed, launched off cliffs, and drowned. The hero car, used for close-ups, was a high-quality replica with a V8. But the car performing the athletic feats was, at its heart, a humble Volkswagen. The fiberglass exotic, the Lycan Hypersport. In Furious 7, the stakes were raised to the level of hypercars. The Lycan Hypersport, a Lebanese supercar with diamonds in its headlights and a price tag of $3.4 million, was the centerpiece. Only 7 of these cars were ever produced. The script called for the car to be jumped between 3 skyscrapers, a death sentence for the vehicle. W Motors, the manufacturer, could not provide multiple multi-million-dollar cars for destruction. Instead, the production team built 6 less expensive replicas. These stunt cars did not feature the twin-turbo flat-six engine or the carbon fiber monocoque of the original. They were constructed using fiberglass molds and were powered by Porsche Boxster powertrains. These replicas were significantly lighter and cheaper, allowing the stunt team to rig them to cables and hurl them through glass windows without bankrupting the studio. The car that met its demise, falling to the ground below, was a fiberglass shell devoid of the engineering brilliance that defined the real Lycan. It was a spectacular illusion, proving that in cinema, rarity is just another problem to be solved by fabrication. The automatic truth, the stunt Supras. We return to the car that defines the franchise for many, the orange Toyota Supra Turbo. While the primary hero car driven by Paul Walker was a legitimate performance machine, the fleet of stunt cars required to film the various sequences were far less impressive. In scenes where the car is seen sliding, jumping, or being driven by stunt performers in wide shots, the vehicles were often naturally aspirated models equipped with automatic transmissions. The complex manual shifting sequences, the aggressive clutching and gear changing that became a visual staple of the films were inserted in post-production or filmed using the single hero car. The stunt team needed reliability and consistency, which the automatic transmissions provided. To hide this, the interiors were fitted with fake manual shifters and clutch pedals to maintain the continuity of the character's driving skill. It was a practical compromise. The result was a pair of cars that felt like opposites, yet were equally capable of telling the story, one through performance and one through the magic of editing. These cars, despite their mechanical shortcomings, accomplished something real engineering often fails to do. They inspired millions. They proved that the legend of a car is not found solely in its horsepower figures or its quarter-mile times, but in the story it tells and the emotions it evokes. If you enjoyed exploring the mechanical secrets behind these silver screen legends, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the automotive world. Until next time, remember that sometimes the greatest legends are built on a chassis of pure imagination.